Hello, I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com, and that's what powers the ohmTown Daily News Show. And that's what this show is here on Twitch. It also gets copied over to YouTube, and it is a podcast. You can also stream it via ohmTown, although the syncing is not acting properly all the time. So if the latest episode isn't there, head on over to YouTube or to Twitch here, because that's where the VOD originates. At any rate, let's get into today's news. This is for September 24th, 2022, and covers around the last 24 hours. Every once in a while, an article from the past gets updated by the publisher, and my aggregator grabs it and imports it again as if it's new. So every once in a while, something old pops in. I try to catch it, but I'm not always present. At any rate, let's get into today's news. The very first article is sci-fi story ideas and writing prompts. I'm really into short stories, and I like anthologies as movies and stuff like that. And so if you are a writer and you want something, short story read on the air, I actually have a channel that I'm slowly putting together right here. So Aerith is the storybook world where stories take place, and I'll even read them live on the air during that show, during specific periods. But it's a weekly show, 1 hour a week, and I plan on bringing 50 shows to Twitch. Pardon me 1 second. Okay. But this is going to throw us over to prowritingaid.com, and it is a great resource if you are interested in writing. And so, yeah, this article must have been updated or something because it's from September 10th. But it has a bunch of ideas, like alien story ideas. And it's like a writing prompt. So there's something similar to this that takes place over on Reddit from time to time. Called writing prompts, and not necessarily identical to this. Obviously, it's a little bit more dynamic over on Reddit. People actually publish their stories over there as well. So if you're interested in short stories, sometimes they even end up getting published when they expound upon them to a greater degree. But it's pretty cool. Biopunk story ideas. Again, if you are a short story writer or you want to be, these are some of those writing prompts. Dystopia story ideas, high-tech story ideas. Social media gets pushed to the extreme. That was something that I think it was a Black Mirror episode that I watched, where social media. Oh, and it was actually on the Orville. That's where it was. One of I'd seen it at least twice, so I know that there's one on Orville where social media led to all kinds of stuff. Very dystopian aspect of it too. It's but that was a fun show to watch. So in the last season, they reintroduced it. Because it was further back in the past, like the second season. So go check out the Orville too if you're into that kind of stuff. They have robot story ideas, and science fantasy story ideas, and continues on. So I would suggest going over to Pro Writing Aid. Just follow that link. If you are late to the story, basically all of the links end up in the show notes for the VOD, but I'll throw them in here real quick because my title got posted after I plopped this article into the chat. So there you go. I'm working on another way to make this so it's possible to pull all of the articles just by doing a command, and it'll link to something that has all the articles preloaded. I haven't quite made that an option yet, but I'm working on it. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel, and that's really about business. And this one says these 7 states have the least air pollution in the United States. And the reason why it's in the Hatch Ideas channel is because it's from CNBC. And let me think. So it says here, these 7 states have the least air pollution in the United States. It's written by Annika Kim Constantino. And before I get too far, that last article, the one that's over at Pro Writing Aid, that one is by Hannah Yang. So I always give credit to the author of these articles. I skim through it. I don't read beforehand. I usually have some experience with the topics, nearly regardless of what the topic is, because of what I do each day. But this is going to hopefully give us a lead on where we can go to have healthier air, right? It says the least air pollution in the United States. And I'm really curious. So Vermont, of course. Vermont is a beautiful place. If you've never been there, go and check it out. But New Hampshire, South Dakota, New Mexico, Wyoming, California, and Rhode Island. I have to imagine that the reason why California is in here is because the wind is kind of whipping through that coastal state, but I'm not sure why others wouldn't benefit on the other side and all along the coast. Oregon, for instance, Washington. That's interesting. So I'm really interested in why that would be. But maybe the article will actually say. So I'm going to slide down straight to California if they have anything on it. No, they don't. They just talk about Vermont and a few other things here. I don't really see. Another surprise is California's high ranking. There we go. Considering that many of the cities ranked among the country's most polluted. Wow. According to the ALA, California may have more stringent emission standards than most states, but factors like wildfires and drought have been found to worsen the state's air quality. So they don't really say why. They actually say why it shouldn't, but that's okay. Yeah, wildfires and drought are a serious problem in California right now. Most of these other states aren't really suffering from that. But it's interesting that these states, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Wyoming has a low population and wide open spaces. South Dakota, same thing, a low population. Wyoming is the least populous state here in the U.S. Why is this still playing over here? My gosh, it's just an ad. Oh my gosh, what a high stakes ad on this website. That's okay. I'll fix all of that. So let's move on to the next article. If you have any comments or questions, concerns, or you want to suggest a lead on an article, that would be great. Feel free to throw it in chat. I'm happy to talk in more depth about any of the topics we talk about before or later. It doesn't matter. I'm pretty flexible about that kind of stuff. The next article is in the Daily News Show, which is the name of this show. Just happens to also be a channel here at ohmTown.com. It's lower income families who will be hit hardest by Fed rate hikes. Yes, that's what I've been saying for the last 9 months here as I'm streaming. In the last decade, as I've been talking publicly about the merging, the crossroads of business, technology, and society. This is really, Fed rate hikes is a business mechanic, but it has socioeconomic impacts that really, if you don't take that into consideration when you're making your decisions in life, you're either completely unaware of it, which is usually the case, or if you tacitly say, I don't care, even though your rates are going up through the roof and the CPI is being hard hit, and even the producer price index is being hard hit by things, primarily gas. It's downright sociopathic to say that you don't care, mainly because everything that's associated with this Fed rate hike, which is everything. All prices are going to shoot through the roof. Pardon me one second. And the ability to purchase a home, a car, get loans in general, everything really is associated with this rate hike. And the Fed just raised it 75%, or sort of 0.75%. So I'm thinking that they're going to do it here again in November. Towards the end of November, they're going to raise it another 25 points. It's going to be rough. And if you're on the verge, like on an arm for real estate, or if you are having to refinance something or planning on purchasing anything, you're going to pay a tremendous price now. And I think that it's going to get worse. And others do too. So this is actually an opinion piece over at commondreams.org. And I always have the caveat that, they have some inflammatory statements that get made. I'm not too worried about this. It is absolutely true that lower income families will be the hardest hit by Fed rate hikes. They cannot weather the storm of some fiscal process that they're not in charge of. This is an article over at commondreams.org by Dean Baker, and I would urge everybody to go and read this. Don't take my summary of what they're saying as the TLDR of this article, because I haven't read this part of it. I haven't read it really. But the real problem here is that while rates increase, everybody else is going to increase the cost of goods sold. So they're going to increase their rates so that they can acquire the losses, reacquire the losses that they are going to suffer for all of these other rate hikes. And that's how it is across the board. Everybody is going to start squeezing the orange a little more to get more juice, because that's just the way it is. But the people who cannot squeeze anything anywhere are the people that are living check to check, month to month, meal to meal at times. And it's these lower income families where there isn't a business at play here where something can be squeezed harder. There isn't really an option. They can't really get another job because there's a finite amount of time. You have to have work-life balance of some degree. And it's really greed that's causing these inflationary trends. So go over to Common Dreams and read this article. It says here, in fact, the story could go well into reverse. For over the last 4 decades, wage gains for the bottom half of the wage distribution trailed average wage growth. This is especially true during periods of high unemployment. In fairness, if the unemployment rate stays under 4 or 5%, which I don't for a moment believe it truly is, to be counted as unemployed, you have to be seeking a job. And there's a great resignation. There are people that are bowing out of the workplace and not, for the most part, saying that they are looking for a job, even if they are. So it says, this would still qualify as a period of relatively low unemployment, but there is no guarantee that workers at the bottom would see wage gains equal to the average pace of wage growth. So I think that even when people do come back to work, even when jobs do open up, there are not going to be jobs that are livable wages. Because these people who are providing jobs basically are saying, well, you should be happy that I'm giving you a job, instead of respecting the employee and saying the reason why I have a job and that there are businesses that are open and operating is because of the dynamic between the worker and the performance that worker does, leading to something that a consumer is consuming. And just because you're at the helm of a ship, it can be crashed on the rocky shoals of reality simply by workers saying, I'm tired of your crap. I want more money. I want a better work-life product, or balance. That's the way it is, and that's the way it should be. But food is expensive, folks, and so a lot of capitulation takes place. So let's move on to the next article. This one is in the Hatch Ideas channel, and it's over at the CNBC as well. New York is now the nation's busiest port in historic rerouting of trade away from West Coast. The delays that are taking place in the West Coast are substantial. It right now is pretty much the supply chain issue, supposedly. It says Port of New York and New Jersey moved 843,191 tons, I guess. So it's imports plus exports. So that's the total units. And the Port of Los Angeles and LA were second and third in cargo volume as more trade moved away from the West Coast due to ongoing concerns about labor strikes and lockouts. The East Coast gains have led to trade congestion with vessel waiting times up in Savannah, Houston, New York, New Jersey. But there are signs that the situation may be reaching an inflection point as consumer demand slows down, where it's only slowing down because there isn't an option. I'm trying to actually buy equipment for a project that I'm working on, and I can't. And there's no expectation. There's not even a reserve list. I have no opportunity to get the equipment that I'm trying to get simply because it doesn't have a place in the supply chain right now. So the total number of containers that Port of Los Angeles ranked third in the nation, moving 805,314 total pardon me, total import and export units, containers. That was 38,000, roughly 38,000 less than Port of New York and New Jersey, according to this article. And I think that automation really needs to kick in. There needs to be a greater number of automated processes in ports to get stuff out away from the port as fast as possible, essentially 1 mile away. Do this, what I'm referring to as 1 mile. This initial 1 mile is where drivers would take trucks that are already loaded, and then from there would be able to either drive them away or drive them to some other automated facility that would automatically take trucks out. And so automated trucks where they could have a human component sitting in the vehicle for that last mile convergence, being able to park the trucks and all of that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of fine motor skills necessary for that nowadays. Right now in 20 years it's going to be a completely different animal if this garbage keeps happening. So it says more East Coast trade and more port congestion. You have mega corporations, Berkshire Hathaway, massive billions, trillions of dollars under their control, and we still have port problems. Pardon me, I don't know what's going on. I've had really bad allergies. So during the week of September 19th, marine traffic has monitored 28 container ships waiting off the coast of the Port of Savannah with an average wait of 10 days. Might as well just round up 9.9 days. Makes no difference. For the Port of New York, 12 container vessels are waiting for an average of 9 days, and the Port of Houston has 25, waiting on average 8 days. We shouldn't be doing this. We should have more ports, for crying out loud. Just make it possible. But it's mergers and acquisitions. It's convergence of key infrastructure elements that should be facilitating our type of society. We build things and we export them. We want things and we import them. Why are we waiting 10 days for vehicles to come in and dock, for crying out loud. It's the human component that's slowing it down. Let's figure out what is a process of A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. If I can turn your job into an algorithm of functionality, then the job is machine ready, is automation ready. You know, it's ridiculous to balk at adopting technology simply because there's a human component in it, particularly when it's something that's taking 10 days to move stuff into a dock. Now, let's move on to the next article. The Fed says unemployment will rise and these workers would lose their jobs first. Oh, you know what? I didn't put that last article in the stream, so really sorry about that. Yeah, that's where we are. So the Fed says unemployment will rise and these workers will lose their jobs first. This is an article by Max Zahn. I'm just going to stop this video. Wow, this has a massive ad. That's like a ginormous ad, for crying out loud. The Federal Reserve escalated its fight against inflation this week, instituting a major rate hike and saying that more will follow. The move will cause a jump in the number of unemployed Americans by the end of next year, the central bank said. The Fed has put forward a series of aggressive interest rate hikes in the recent months as it tried to slash price increases by slowing the economy and choking off demand. But that's not what's really happening. There's so much money and it's at the top. So if they want to, the problem really is that the economics are out of balance. When people talk about late stage capitalism, this is pretty much it. There's so much wealth and it's stored at the top that it's ridiculous to say that interest rates are going to stop increased pricing. Let's see. The stock market is down 486. That's because people are pulling their money out, not because of the fear of interest rate hikes. Bitcoin took a hit today again. It climbed yesterday, but it's at 18,918. And if you think that it's going to slash prices, gas prices are on the incline. And again, that is the reason why there are high prices. People are still trying to recover their money that they've spent on gas prices increasing over the last 2 years. And that went up because the gas producers, again, it's always the producer that's causing the problem. They have the ability to absorb some of the losses just like everybody else does, but they also have the ability to demand a great squeeze of the orange, as I always say now here on the stream. They can squeeze as hard as they want to. People still have to get in their cars, and they actually have to get in their cars because of dense policy about that I'm going to get to here in a minute. It's one of the articles that I chose. I think that this isn't really the solution. The solution here is to tax the rich. The massive profits that were received over the last 2.5 years, and it should all go into solving other problems. Grants to produce technology to automate, educational grants to lower the cost of education, free education for the first 2 years. I mean, there's so many other things. It's about opportunity. It's about creating competition. It's about educating people so that they say, hey, I can spin up a business and compete and grow my business to compete and get more businesses started. We have a ton of businesses, but they're not doing anything that's lowering prices because mega corporations are buying the tech. But that's just one little element of a bigger socioeconomic problem where it's business, technology, and society at odds with each other. And this is definitely not going to help. Raising the cost to get money for people who need it in business and education, etc. This is not going to help. The baseline cost for everything is going up because the Fed business rate is going up. Or I should say, sorry, not the business rate, the inflation rate, the basis for all inflation or all loans, all interest, all everything is going up. So the cost of living is going up. The next article is about plant-based meat. So it's in the Word in Tech. And I can tell you why plant-based meats has fizzled. McDonald's has shelved its meat-free burger trial, and stock in one of the major manufacturers has dipped nearly 70%. At the start of the year, McDonald's launched a plant-based burger sizzled on a flat iron grill and topped with slivered onions, tangy pickles, crisp shredded lettuce, Roma tomato slices, ketchup, mustard, mayo, and a slice of melty American cheese. Sounds really great, right? It says, for a while, it looked like a glimpse of the future. Well, the test run died, the McPlant burger. It was shelved. Oh, I had already opened that, so let me close it. The problem here is Lauren Aratani is the author of this article over at The Guardian. So the article is going to say something, but I'm going to say something. That's my value add for the ohmTown Daily News show and the other shows. If you are so interested, you can be a host or co-host. Just let me know. Even in chat, just say, hey, I want to co-host. And we can talk about it. So the problem here with plant-based burgers and as a replacement for the standard fare, whatever it is, we'll shred it up and it'll pretend to be pork. We'll do this and it'll pretend to be chicken or beef or I don't know, that whatever you want to call it. Well, it's not. It never tastes like a burger, a real burger. It doesn't taste like the proteins that the people who have grown up with beef and chicken and pork and fish and whatever else you want to replace with this plant-based food. And we have to change the dynamic, the perception that we have to match something else for people to adopt that. What's going to end up happening is animal sourced foods are going to become too expensive. There's a finite amount of space. The cost to keep them, to keep that food chain going, you need that animal. And people are kind of going, I don't really want to eat beef. I don't want to really eat chicken. I don't really want to eat these animal sourced products. Yet these food substitutes, these meat substitutes, they don't taste like those proteins anyway. You have to, bury it in some other sauce or something to make it not taste like, and I've been down this road. I for 3 years I was a vegetarian. I ended up coming back to California and eating at a burger joint that I had not eaten at for 3 years. And when I came back and had it with some friends, I never went back to being vegetarian because it was so damn good. Well, nowadays, the way that I look at it and the way that I talk with other people about it is you need to move away from the image that this is supposed to taste like a burger. It needs to be something unique in and of itself. And word of mouth will make whatever this new product is, it'll make it attractive to people. You're not going to be able to force it on society, and you're not going to be able to say to people, hey, this tastes just like a burger, when it tastes like cardboard. It tastes like nothing. It tastes devoid of anything that makes it a burger. And I have yet to find one that isn't either masked by some other flavors to make it approachable, or in any way close to being a real burger in any way, shape, or form. So you end up eating something that's like a bean burger or whatever, and that's fine as long as you understand that. But obviously McDonald's didn't find any value in it. I've never liked anything from Beyond Meat. And now they have their own PR issue where the CEO bit somebody's nose in a fight somewhere, at a football game or something, which was just ridiculous. People getting so bent out of shape about a football game. Says for a time, Wall Street went vegetarian. In 2019, Beyond Meat was valued at over $10 billion, more than Macy's or Xerox. The most bullish investors believe that plant-based meat would make up 15% of all meat sales by 2030, but the reality of Americans' interest in plant-based meat has proved more complicated than investors thought, and the adoption of meat alternatives has been slower than what was once hoped. Today, Beyond Meat is valued at just over $900 million. The sobering story is similar to those experienced by many new ventures that see exhilarating hype after a flood of Silicon Valley venture capital cash, fueled by excitement about innovation, which is great. But it's the market that rules. I would rather go to an Indian place that has all kinds of vegetarian meals and never once mentions, hey, have a cheeseburger that uses this plant replacement. Why? Because it's not a burger. A plant will never be a burger. You might be able in a lab reproduce the protein structure, and it is animal, but it's lab grown. No animals harmed in the production of it. You'll have to get over the uncanny valley of saying to somebody this was born in a lab. Oh my gosh. Hello. Wow. Hello, bald zebra. How are you? Wow. The whole herd is coming in. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Thanks for coming over. I really appreciate it. Wow. I'm not a gaming stream. I hope everybody doesn't just panic and run like the herd. I am a streamer. I talk. Okay, here, I'll introduce myself. So what I've built is a news aggregation site. And I hope that you get a kick out of this, because it isn't a normal stream in the sense that we talk about politics, or we talk about one thing in particular. I am hypervigilant. I'm always up. I'm always reading about news and whatnot. And thanks for following. Everybody, thank you for following. I'm trying to get that right there to hit 100%. It would be wonderful to have everybody follow. That would be great. But you'll get to see what I do here. So what I did was I built ohmTown.com many years ago, but it never was open to the public. It was for me, and was really just a holding place for a bunch of data. Whoa. Hey, thank you so much. Yes, I'm so excited. I started in January of this year, and I've never missed a stream yet. So thank you very much for coming and hitting that goal. I really appreciate it. You are all so awesome. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. So what ohmTown is a news aggregation site, and it funnels about 200 news sources that I rotate periodically. If they no longer are updating valuable information, then I kind of purge them out. all of my follower stuff is behind my web page all of a sudden. And thanks. I'm sorry that it masked everything a little bit, but I one thing you'll know about me is I do associative thinking, so we can talk about something and then we pivot away, and then I kind of drag it back because we follow a chain of thought that are all linked together. And so just to get back on track, ohmTown.com aggregates about 200 news sources into 6 main categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. And each one of these I intend to bring to Twitch as a show. And then it also gets copied over to YouTube. It gets copied over to Apple Podcasts and to Google. So you can go and basically pick up the ohmTown Daily News Show as a podcast anywhere, including Spotify and other places. So go and check it out. I have a Discord, but I don't really spend much time there because there isn't anybody over there. And I don't really hype it up right now. It's really, I want to see more people hanging out with me on the show. So feel free to ask questions. And the next thing that we do is I take all of these articles and I talk about 10 of them each day. And it's from the last 24 hours. And in this particular case, this is the channel called Warcrafters, which is about gaming, either first person, real time, RPG, tabletop, although I do have other stuff for tabletop. Sorry. So there's actually Tabletop Nights, which is a tabletop gaming channel that I hope to bring to Twitch as well. Well, this is Zachtronics, and it's a game called Zachtronics that combined tarot and solitaire. And this publisher, this website posts it, and then I talk about it. Christopher Livingston, which has an awesome name. I'm always on at 6 o'clock Eastern, and sometime in the near future, probably starting January, I'm going to be spending longer times and pushing the shows out more now. I've got a new, not really a new plan. It's the old plan, but a new year, and I'm going to start extending the time frame that I talk about the show for the ohmTown Daily News Show and for about 5 or 6 other channels, quote unquote channels, that are going to come to Twitch that I've already got planned. And that should start in January with a really big push in right around June, where I'll start spending about 8 to 12 hours a day streaming news and other topics, and gaming if I can get a chance, because I am a gamer. So Zachtronics is the solitaire game, and pardon me, and it says Fortune's Foundation, part of Zachtronics Solitaire Collection, adds a tarot deck into solitaire for a fantastic challenge. Again, I just want to draw attention to Christopher Livingston over at PCGamer.com. If that isn't a name for a publisher who during the day writes for PCGamer.com, but at night goes off and solves murder mysteries, I don't know what name could possibly be there. It's just an awesome name. So they've drifted away from Wordle and Not Words, which I've never even heard of. And now they're playing Zachtronics Solitaire Collection. And I believe it's over on Steam. I think I've seen this before as a name. But it says here that some of the rules are you can only move one card at a time. You can build up or down on the main column. So a 5 of cups can go on to a 4 of cups or a 6 of cups. It's just like solitaire. A form of solitaire. You can park a single card in the main foundation piles. It looks like it's a pretty awesome game, and I dig solitaire. So it's only $10. And let me see. I will check for everybody. You might hear I use a trackball, so you might hear the mouse scroll. Yeah, so you can actually get the Zachtronics Solitaire Collection for $9.99. Although there's another one called Zachtronics Puzzle Pack that costs $101.54. That's insane. But that's what this here is. Zachtronics Solitaire Collection. So go get it. $10 over on Steam. Let me close that and go to the next article. And this next article is over in the Continuity Report. And it's about Witcher Season 3 and Blood Origin spinoff get Netflix dates. So Netflix is making 2023 the year of The Witcher, announced at the streamer's fan event, Totem, on Saturday. The Witcher spinoff series called Witcher Blood Origin will debut on December 25th, and Season 3 of the main Witcher show will follow in the summer of 2023. Fans last visited The Witcher over a year ago. Pardon me one second. Wow. Just put that as your wallpaper. That'll keep you focused. Always working with a window open so that you don't have him staring at you with those eyes. Jordan Moreau over at Variety.com is the author of this article. And let's see here. Is there anything else in this article that will really kind of motivate us to go over and watch it? Because I think we're all, if you're here on Twitch, you're probably on board with The Witcher. Yeah, there's nothing really else here. So we'll move on to the next article. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free. I take into account everything that y'all say. And if we get sidetracked by a discussion and I don't get to an article, within an hour, I don't care. I will continue talking and we'll continue the show, and I'll stay chatting with you as long as you want me to. These 10 cities have the best pizzerias in the world. So you can find out, if you're a New Yorker, you can find out where New York lands on the list. Let's see how many people drop from my stream when I say that New York isn't the number one. What do you think? You think New York is going to be number one? This is an article over at CNBC. Celia Fernandez is the author of it. And they took into consideration customer service, cleanliness, and beauty of the environment, taste and overall healthiness of the food. And the city with the best pizzerias is New York City. And Rome. Shocker. I am shocked. Where do you think it was going to be? My pick was Wyoming. No, not really. There's only like 650,000 people in Wyoming. There might be one really perfect pizzeria in Wyoming. So the best pizza in 2022 is a tie between New York City and Rome, Italy. Each city had the 5 best pizzerias in the world, which was more than any of the other cities in the top 50 pizza list. So in New York, the top pizzeria is Una Pizza Napolitana. The Lower East Side eatery is famous for its 12-inch wood-fired Neapolitan pies from self-taught chef Anthony Mangieri. Well, I guess the next time I go to New York, that's where I'm going to be heading. I love pizza. We have this little pizza place here that I go to at least, lately twice a week. So, oh man, the rest of that page loaded up. So the rest of it was Naples, Italy, London, UK, Tokyo, Japan, Castera, Italy, Paris, France, Milan, Italy, Copenhagen, Denmark, and Hong Kong, China. Wow, really? There's a place in Hong Kong, a pizza place in Hong Kong, China that made number 10? Shocked by that. Okay, so the next article, and it's actually the last one for today, so I'm going to probably throw you over to, you tell me where you would like to go. This is in the Stock Marketeers. I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and I'd love to hear your take on this, because I think that this person's opinion is way wrong. But you tell me. Maybe it's the bias here might be real, and because we are technology savvy And we like a work-life balance, right? We like watching people play games or playing games. So maybe we're not the right audience for this, but maybe we can be the right voice for this, because I think that a reckoning needs to come to the workplace. So this is titled Outside the Box. Companies win when employees are in the office, but threats, orders, and mind-numbing work won't get them back. So I've seen this discussion in a different forum. It just happened to be in my aggregator. It isn't the same article that I've read in other places. It isn't even close to the discussion that I've had in other places. But here we go. Oh no, did it really? Oh man, I'm not logged in. It won't let me even scroll. Oh my gosh, that sucks. Okay, so what they are saying in this article is, and I don't have, I can't log in. So what this article goes on to say, and I'll throw the link to the article in the chat so that you can go over there and see it for yourself. So what they say in the article is that they want, you know what? Let me see if I can do something. Let me see if I can do it. No, I won't be able to do it. Anyway, the article goes on to say that really what the employer should be doing is giving you motivation. So it's kind of like what EA did to gamers, so that you feel like you're doing something, and that it isn't all about wages, and that the employer should just make you feel like you should be there and belong. And now I've been somewhat of a digital nomad for 25 years. I've worked on each coast with employers on opposite coasts. I hire people from around the world for my own activities, my own business stuff. And never do I hear people, I've never heard employees say in a job where they love doing the job, you know what, I really just wish that I could spend more time in the office. It's just not how it works. Nowadays, people either love their job and there's zero complaint, there's zero issue. They don't seek anything else out. But nowadays, people are burnt out. They understand that they can work from home unless it is a bespoke product or something manufacturing where they have to have their hands on the actual product. It isn't about being motivated by leadership in lieu of being paid more. It's not about pay when most people want a better work-life balance. It's really about being compensated and being happy outside of work, because nowadays, again, people have realized that their gig doesn't make them who they are. Their gig is just a means to an end to get out of the job and go and enjoy life. And I've had employers say to me, well, we'll just tell people what to do and they'll do it. And I've had employers nowadays saying, well, we'll just find somebody else. Well, I hate to break it to these people, these employers. The Great Resignation is real. Quiet quitting is real. Something that I refer to as quiet fleecing, and recently heard somebody else say it, is true. Employers are basically telling people, you have to work 40 hours. Now you have to come in during COVID. And they're not realizing that technology benefits everybody. And I can go to a dozen meetings in a day without having to leave this spot. And I'm much more efficient, much happier. My work-life balance is better. I'm not spending 4 hours on the road just getting into work, 2 hours each way at times, depending on where you work and where you live. It's kind of ridiculous. But they say, but threats and orders and mind-numbing work won't get them back. True. But it was never about that. People tolerate threats and orders and mind-numbing work when the pay is right. But the pay is sub inflation by a long shot now. Cost of living increases, depending on where you are, aren't covering inflation and the new CPI, because the consumer price index is just skyrocketing through the roof. Now gas prices are starting to climb again, so the producer price index is going to start climbing again. And that's basically where we stand. We all need now, as employees, to understand that we're the ones that actually make those jobs work. And so people have to say, look, I want to be able to work at home. And we don't have any bargaining power unless we're either unionized or we quit. And we've built a system here in the United States in particular, where we are a gig economy. We can be fired, we can quit without notice at any time. We can just walk. But we've built this beast where the employer doesn't respect the employee, and the employee is sitting there saying, the employer doesn't respect me, and I'm going to have to go somewhere else entirely just to advance my career. And it isn't that there isn't opportunity within businesses to move up. It's that the employer has you and says, well, I don't need to move you up because, well, you're already employed by me, and you should be happy that you're employed by me. So what do you think? What do you think about this? Do you want to return to the office? Some people do, some people don't. They imply an age difference in the article, and that older generation actually suffers more by being distant. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's really about onboarding everybody so that they understand how to use the technology. The same thing goes with education. Professors and teachers have the ability to teach remotely. The younger students do actually suffer, so I would always encourage younger students to return to the classroom. Unfortunately, COVID is a real thing still. But higher learning, depending on the college, depending on your objectives, it's more about networking socially. But you can learn entirely remotely, and it's, for many people, it's superior because they can work on whatever else they need to work on. But when it's time to study, they can study whenever they want, and not a set time frame in the middle of the day that pulls them out of work or pulls them away from life. So do you go by Toolgeese? Or hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Retired from the Navy last year and worked a government contract job in an office for about 6 months and couldn't stand the environment anymore. Now I drive a concrete truck. Hey, that's actually been something, that's been something that I've wanted to do. I want, most streamers call you Tool or Toll. So yeah, I actually love construction work. I would love to just sit in a truck and destroy big rocks. So Toll, like Jethro Tull. Got it. It's one of the things I've actually been threatening people in my life. What I want to do is drive a construction vehicle and just do demolition and dig holes with like a backhoe, it's just so much fun. And at the end of the day, you actually get to see what you've done. In my line of work, it's very ephemeral. So you don't necessarily see it. When I'm streaming, I'm really happy because not only do I get to interact, but there's actually something that people can consume later on too. So it has legs, and I dig it. So that's why I started streaming in January. I wanted to talk about a wide gamut of news. Y'all just happen to walk in here when I'm at the tail end of this. But we had a bunch of other articles. Like here's a story ideas, and which is at a website called prowritingaid.com. That one's a lot of fun if you're a writer. The least air pollution in the United States. So Toll says, I think a select few students in primary and secondary education benefit from remote learning in their primary means of receiving instruction, but most of the time, learning law of primacy is best delivered hands-on and in person. Yeah, so definitely the K through 12 space should be taught in person. That's actually where a lot of children learn to be human. And in my, again, I'm being cagey about it, but in my line of work, one of the things that I discuss is that automation is pretty much a dominant trend in business, technology, and society. That's the crossroads that I talk about. And a human can't become a human without interacting with humans, but a job can be replaced by enumerating the series of steps that start with the raw product and end with the finished product. Well, you can't do that remotely with a human being. It's pretty darn impossible for children to become humans without interacting with humans. Again, just like you say, the beginnings of their existence all the way up to 12th grade. At the end of high school, they are largely the age of majority and supposed to be autonomous. If education has done their job right, then people are free to explore after that point. So Toll also says, I think to the Japanese education system in that regard, the first 3 or 4 years of education is how to be a positive contributor to society with very little reading, writing, and math. Yeah, and it's mostly, even here in the States, it's mostly interaction and kind of the social skill building. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but yeah, it's mostly just everybody just hanging out and sharing. Some people actually walk away. I heard a reporter, I think it was a reporter, say that he was mad still as a 40-year-old because his preschool teacher forced him to share. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of it because it's really kind of a disgusting idea of what what their focus is really antisocial. Yet he's basing his entire moral compass on the idea that he's mad at his preschool teacher who made him share his Crayolas. I wish that I could, I'm not prepped to load that up and show you this person's mindset, but it's shocking that people listen to people like that. So Tolligan says, yeah, my kids have been suffering with this whole social emotional support learning model in Connecticut. Yeah, I'm not sure of the full scope of that. Oh, hey Lunchbox, how you doing? Yeah, so I'm really curious. What is their particular aspect of that over in Connecticut? What is their take on it? I'm glad somebody knows what I'm talking about with that lunch with the dude saying that he's mad at his preschool teacher. Lunchbox, you you made me feel like I was not just blowing in the wind there. So yeah, there's a bunch of articles that I go through each time. It's only an hour. I know that a lot of people aren't interested necessarily in the news, but with more people chatting it makes it a little bit more engaging and entertaining. And I'm not actually doing this for like the podcast and over to YouTube and stuff like that. I really want to have more people talking about this stuff, but in a lighter context and not with the vitriol and anger and stuff like that that you'll get from a lot of politics and news, real world news shows. So Toll says, yeah, I also wish you were making that up, but I don't doubt that it exists. A 30-year-old CIS male sued his parents for circumcising him as an infant. Yeah, that's one of those things where their history comes back, and depending on the mindset of the child, you kind of go, that was 30 years ago, and it was the time. I mean, 30 years ago, it was pretty standard. It's just a different world today. And depending on the parent, they won't do that with their child. But it's hard to reach back in time and, pay the dues kind of a thing. And yeah, I'm sure. Depending on the legal foundation for it, then I'd be curious. In fact, I'll look into it because I'm really curious about it. I've already gone through a pre-law curriculum and completed it, but I'm not going to go into law school. I'm just really curious about law. I might actually continue on and get a master's in law, but I wouldn't be too surprised. I would not be surprised by somebody winning in court. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, there have been a lot of cases where the foundation of the law doesn't account for the context in which the event happened. So later on, the law says that this is illegal, but at the time when an event took place, not only was it kind of standard practice culturally, but it was legal then. It's just that when you look at it with a different light in this new law, suddenly it's illegal. And I'm sure that it's probably a child abuse case kind of a thing. But it's one of those societal changes, which is why I talk about this kind of stuff. And you came after this, which is about the Fed rate hikes. I talk about this because your costs increase when the Fed increases things, because when they increase their rate, everything from the bottom up increases. But business tends to be predatory in that nature. They say, well, if it's raising by 0.75%, then I'm going to squeeze a little harder and raise my costs by 2.5%. And then as you move up the chain from the producer's price index all the way to the consumer price index, you end up paying 6% to 12%, depending on what it is. And now with gas prices trending back up, you're going to be in some serious trouble. So Toll says social and emotional in Connecticut schools is basically talk about your feelings, and they force the kids to try different means of dealing with stress, which Toll wouldn't mind, but there is no concern in the students' interest in what skills they are teaching. And that's at the 3 to 4? Wow, that's interesting. That might be, I don't know. It really depends on the time frame that they spend throughout the day. Oh, if it's K through 12? Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, the amount of time that they're going to be spending on it would be of great concern to me. But there has been a feeling in education that it's ebbed and flowed over the years, where it's more hands-on or less hands-on, it's with emotion, it's without emotion. Back in the 50s and 60s, it was really, you step away from it. Then the 70s came and you kind of got a little bit more touchy-feely. And really the last 20 years, it's been leaning more towards social and emotional development, because we've had ever increasing violence in schools. And we need to make everybody look at each other as human beings and not as the potential for either violence or anger, or distancing from each other by cliques and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of this socio economic changes in mind. And now but that's different. That's entirely different than things like CRT. I think Connecticut might be focusing on a particular element, which is the social and emotional imbalance, where students haven't historically, they haven't had any of this. So they don't necessarily come out of the school as having social skills, capable of communication and things like that, being able to express themselves in a way other than, kind of like a yes or a no, or a grunt or a shrug or something like that. But I'd have to look into it more to see what the greater context is. So, and what they've done is just change the types of cliques. Yeah. I think socially everybody creates in-groups and out-groups. That's just the way that sociology is. That's the way that social structures are. We create our own mini tribes of friends, and that's just how it is. But I am not surprised that somebody probably has this as their PhD thesis, got into education, got a grant, got some buy-in, and then rolled it out. And just like it has happened decade after decade, we don't know what the full ramifications of doing this is. So instead of preps and nerds and jocks and outcasts and stuff that you grew up with, yep, that's what I grew up with, they have started falling into political divisions in like 8th grade, or the LGBTQ plus kids all grouped together. And in groups that would fall into that category of LGBTQ plus and supporters, that's usually because they are seeking support because they get harassed when they aren't within their clique. And that's part of the reason why there is social and emotional reset. Different places call it something different, but it's really about seeing everybody as a human being and not as an object of scorn. So while I don't know the full context of it, cliques forming is something that is natural in society. But hopefully we all look past that and say, well, look, everybody should be seeing each other as just a human being, but they leave the clique alone. That's kind of the problem, is that instead of everybody seeing each other as a human being and everybody get along, so to speak, it's one of those things where you get called naive when you say, why can't we all just get along? Well, at some point we can't, but it shouldn't be based on something like preps and nerds and jocks and outcasts and LGBTQ plus and so on. Yeah. And Lunchbox says it right there. The animosity between cliques seems to be not as bad as when they were a kid in the 80s. And it really depends on which school, too. I mean, the violence scales with the socioeconomic status of the school, and that is largely demonstrated in the statistics. So one of the big problems that I have is I think that more money needs to be spent, more tax money needs to be spent on raising the level of education and opportunity and equity in schools, so people don't feel like they have to either seek out a clique for support or turn to outright gangs to gain protection in a more socioeconomic challenged environment like inner cities. Yeah. So it's more passive aggressive now, according to your kids? Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Just wait until they discover entitlement, where somebody just believes that they deserve, well, we all deserve respect, but beyond that, you kind of earn what you get. Wait until someone snaps and shoots up the school. Yeah, that's always going to be sad. It's one of those elements that I talk about too, because we need mental health. Even in grade schools, we need people to be aware that there is behavioral issues and actually take steps to mitigate it, which is failing us entirely in basically in society. All of the last violence that has taken place in schools, the person was known and they took no active steps to mitigate the outcome. Based on everything that I've read, they've always been known to police, to members of society that had the ability to raise alarms, and nothing was done. So I think it's an important step that we need to take. So one of the things that actually mitigates a lot of this is going digital. Distance education is actually pretty good about that kind of stuff, but you have to have a whole lot of buy-in by society, parents, families, etc., and the capability to cross that digital divide. So the issue is real. Okay, folks. So I really appreciate you all coming and following. Thank you so much. You've made my night. You've made my week. You've made my year. We've hit that target. But that isn't what was important to me. What was important was people sticking around and hanging out about news over here. I mean, I very rarely stumble on my words, but yeah, you've made everything for me. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I think I'm gonna send you over to James and Michelle. They are big supporters of Bald Zebra, and I dig them, and BZ is awesome. So BZ, if you're in here, which you're probably actually off doing something, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And Toll, awesome. Would love to talk to you more. Lunchbox, thank you so much for sticking around and chatting. All of you who are lurking, really appreciate you sticking around. Feel free to throw your voice in the mix in the future, because as I tell people when I do my discussions, we are all friends. I'm not the person that is important here. It's you. I want to introduce you to some news. Maybe you hadn't heard about it. Give it some context from the crossroads of business, technology, and society. That's what I talk about day in, day out. And if you throw just a little comment in there, it's basically like saying what so many other people out there are saying but are afraid to say. You take that one little step and say, hey, what about this? Or, hey, I don't even like your opinion, dude, because I have a different one. That's what allows us to make a bridge to see that commonality in there. And I will suss out that commonality as long as we have an honest conversation. So awesome to see you all. Thank you so much. And I'm going to send you over to James and Michelle. So let's do this. Hopefully I do it right, because I'm doing something different today. Okay. Thank you all. I'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. I hope. Obviously, if you're all in different channels, you do what makes you happy. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern. Bye-bye. It'll scoot over here in 6 seconds. Bye.